Well, hello there, YouTubes. I've gotten a lot of requests to do this video. This is pretty much going to be going over how I care for my Ackie monitors. You're going to see a lot of other people's enclosures out there, depending on how far you dig, that are a little bit more intricate than mine. This is just a simple adult enclosure. Just designed to basically meet their needs, and I don't really have any fancy rock work or anything like that. In the future, I do want to either improve upon this enclosure or build a whole new one. I haven't completely decided yet. You can leave suggestions down in the comments if you actually watch this video. I don't think I have very many followers, but maybe that'll change. So the dimensions for this cage are 6 feet wide by 2 feet deep by about 3 feet tall. The basking spot up here, you'll notice that there's a stack of tiles. It's kind of my adaptation of what is called a Reddy's rack or a Reitz rack. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce his last name, but Frank Reddy's, kind of pioneered the monitor hobby, so to speak, as far as breeding them and caring for them. And this is a design that he came up with. And the whole purpose is, obviously at the very top, you're going to have the hottest basking spot. And then each layer is going to provide at least a slightly different temperature. This allows the monitors to basically hang out in a temperature that they prefer, that they feel optimal, without compromising security, right? So a big issue for monitors is that they can actually be really shy and really insecure, especially when they're smaller, if they do not have adequate places to hide. Hiding is what makes them feel comfortable, and having adequate places to hide will actually help your monitor become more secure, more outgoing, and easier to tame down. These guys right here, I don't try to handle them every day, simply because, I have a couple of kids and I have other animals and stuff, and I just sometimes don't really have the time. But whenever I feed them, I try to interact with them. I pet them, I'll lift them up off the ground, I'll get them used to my smell and my presence and everything. And they are at the point with only doing that where they're not aggressive, they're not trying to bite me. As you can see right here, they're pretty active, and they aren't really too shy around me, See, I'm tapping my hand on the glass, and they're not even trying to run away from me. They're actually more curious and more hungry than anything. So that is my take on the rack. The reason why I chose stone tiles is because they transfer heat really well. So my idea was that it would just keep them a little bit warmer inside the stack. The climate that I live in is a high desert, so our winter times are really cold and our summer times are really hot. For instance, it's been in the low 20 degrees here in the mornings. We've gotten snow this winter time. However, in the summertime, it can get up to anywhere from 105 to 115 degrees outside. So there's a big variation, and my biggest concern was during the wintertime keeping them warm enough, because I'm not going to keep my house at 80 degrees during the wintertime. Our gas bill would just be astronomical. So I figured that the stones would transfer heat better, so during the colder months it would keep them a little bit warmer, a little bit more optimal temperatures, and so far that's actually worked out pretty well. The temperature for their basking area up here is about 130 to 135 degrees on the surface. So the way I measure that is I have an infrared heat gun with like a little laser pointer on it, and that will actually tell me what the surface temperature is of whatever it is that I'm measuring. A lot of people will measure air temperature, and that is a good way to get your ambient temperature to make sure that your temperature gradients are correct. But it's not going to tell you what your real basking temperature is. Whether you have a heat mat, heat lamps, or heaven forbid a heat rock. If you have a heat rock, I would just throw it out immediately and go with proper underbelly heat like a heat mat. And if you're going to use any kind of heat mats for any animals, I would also connect that to a thermostat. But that, that's a different topic. Here, the lights that I'm using, they're both products from a retailer called Reptile UV. The light on the left there that you see is their Merkur Vapor UVB bulb called the Mega Ray, and the one on the right is their heat projector. I have found that the heat projector actually puts out a ton of heat, and it works really, really well. The biggest benefit to it is that if you touch the outside, the silver portion, it's only going to be about 120 degrees, so it's not hot enough to make a thermal burn. So if an animal touches the outside of that fixture, they're not going to get burned. Now you see that there's a little bit of mesh there on the opening. That mesh does get really hot, but I wouldn't really be too worried about that because they're not really going to be touching the mesh, but sometimes they get a little curious and a little rowdy and they will jump around. So there is that as far as heat goes. I keep a tub of water in there that's deep enough and big enough for them to get in and soak and swim if they need to. My particular animals actually kind of hate the water. I like to feed on that side of the cage and lure them over, and they get so excited about the food that they will go through the water. And when they go through the water, they don't like it. You can tell they kind of shake their head and jump out of the water as quickly as they can. And they don't even really drink that much. The most I've ever seen them drink is actually when they arrived from shipping, which makes sense because stress could possibly dehydrate them or whatever. But since then, I don't really notice them drinking too much. You'll see that behavior right now that the male is doing on top of the female. He actually might be getting ready to copulate right now, but that's kind of a dominating behavior as well. Actually, yeah, we might get lucky here. That is normal monitor behavior. If you ever introduce a couple of monitors to the same enclosure, you're going to notice at least one of them doing that like head jerking and head bobbing behavior. That's him just kind of making sure that the other monitor knows, hey, I'm the big boy here. I'm the dominant monitor, and kind of like if you've ever seen if you've ever seen iguanas do head bobbing, it's kind of the same behavior. It's not behavior that I am really worried about. It's pretty natural for them. Yeah, it looks like he's trying to breed. That's pretty awesome. I was really lucky to get here on video. As you can see, she's kind of like, nah. But I have another video where she was actually pretty receptive. So yeah, kind of touching back on temperature, that's about 130 degrees. The other side of the cage is roughly about 80 degrees, 85 degrees. And then there's temperature gradients all in between. You'll notice I have an LED light here. That's mainly just to light up the enclosure to make it look better. If it'll focus. But it does put off a small amount of heat. So it kind of just keeps things stable and warm. The humidity gauge right there, I don't really rely on it for accuracy, but I do rely on it to tell me when things are kind of getting a little drier. It's kind of my indicator that I need to mist down the cage. That's another point that I wanted to touch on with these monitors, is that all monitors, even ones that are desert monitors, you actually want to elevate the humidity a little bit. The reason being is that the more moisture there is in the air, the less moisture they're actually going to lose from their bodies. And when lizards get dehydrated, it can cause irreparable permanent damage to their internal organs. So humidity and hydration are extremely important. Now, obviously, I'm not keeping them at rainforest levels of humidity, but the gauge there is saying it's about 60%. So that is actually an indication that I will be misting down their cage today, because I try and keep it between 60 and 70%. You know, it would be relatively uncomfortable for people to live in that unless you're used to it. But it's not the 80-90% that rainforest species would require for optimal levels of humidity. Other than that, I also keep them on about a foot of dirt, and it's really just a mix of topsoil, cheapo topsoil, with no fertilizers or anything added to it, and sand. I use all-purpose sand. You could also use play sand. You could use sand that you dig up. You could use even pure dirt that you dig up that you don't have to even mix. If you decide to go that route, though, just make sure that the dirt is clean and that it doesn't have any pesticides, poisons, or fertilizers inside of it, because that could be detrimental to the animals themselves. Oh yeah, that is hardcore breeding behavior. And I'm sorry, guys, I'm doing this totally unscripted, and I have a little bit of a cold, so I apologize for that, if that causes any issues for anyone. But yeah, relatively speaking, these lizards are actually pretty easy to care for. Just give them a little bit of space, give them a lot of heat, and feed them. Actually, speaking of food, the best thing to feed monitors, well, really all lizards that eat other creatures, I guess, or even snakes or whatever, but the best thing that you could feed your monitors are whole prey items. Let's see if I get a better angle. Anyways, like I was saying, whole prey items. That means whether you're feeding them birds, roaches, crickets, rodents, anything, whatever you're feeding them, feed them the entire prey item. Guts, the poop in the guts, the bones, the fur, everything. Because every little component of those prey items have some sort of nutritional value to them. And monitors are pure carnivores, predators, and some will scavenge as well. But the point is that they are biologically designed to naturally eat the entirety of the prey. Even if you watch like those documentaries on Komodo dragons and things, you'll see that they eat the hooves and the horns and everything of the big animals that they take down. So give them whole prey items. These lizards are primarily fed dubia roaches, but I will be ordering some frozen fuzzies and possibly even baby quail for them, because, you know, variety is the spice of life, but their staple right now is just dubia roaches. And I feed them about every other day, second or third day really, and I feed them pretty much as they want to eat, get them nice and fat, and it helps them be conditioned, and it helps them with their activity levels and everything, and yeah, it's actually really easy. I see that I'm at about 15 minutes, so I'm going to cut this video about right here. So if you see this video and you like the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns, by all means, please let me know in the comment section. Yeah, happy herping.